How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like every other video, if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below and I'll either try to answer that question in a comment that you have made or in next week's video or in a dedicated video to itself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with question number one. And it is, what are my thoughts on a 2016 to 2022 Honda Pilot / MDX, specifically with the ZF9. And I know a lot of people don't like the ZF9 transmission, so that's the 9-speed with the push buttons, not the shift lever. If you have the shift lever, then you have the 6-speed made by Honda. So I know a lot of people, once again, don't really like the ZF9, although we do not see many issues with them. So at least not on the Honda side. I talked to a couple Acura techs and they dislike the 9-speed for whatever reason, but I don't see any of them really needing a whole transmission replacement like we do with the 6-speed from Honda. Once again, we're also seeing a lot more juddering issues with the 6-speed versus anything on the 9-speed. So on an average, we're probably, I'm gonna say we change maybe 20 6-speed Honda transmissions to one ZF9. So the numbers are in favor of the ZF9 transmission. People say they drive jerky and stuff like that. I don't see that. I personally own a 19 Pilot Touring with the ZF9. It's got 72,000 miles and I have had zero issues with them. And again, we are not changing the transmissions or torque converters or anything like that on a 9-speed that we are seeing on a 6-speed. So if you are in the market for one of these cars, I personally give it a thumbs up. Do your research, talk to people, maybe a local dealer, text, or whatever the case may be. Go on the forums and just see what is information out there for you. Just to piggyback off of that, there is a recall for torque converter exchanges on the 6-speed transmissions. I'll have a video on that sometime this week. It's actually not a recall. I believe it's just a service bulletin, but regardless, I'm gonna have a video on it, and it does pertain to the 6AT from Honda once again, and we don't see many issues with the ZF9. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So the next question is, what are the service intervals or failure rates for Honda thermostats on their vehicles? And I'm gonna be quite honest with you guys, I have seen 0 Honda thermostat failures in the last 13 years that I have worked for Honda. And even before that, doing my own thing, I have seen 0 thermostat failures. Not that there aren't any out there, but I personally haven't seen not one, with the exception of the newer cars. They have some housings with the built-in thermostats on some of the K series, and mostly all the new cars have plastic thermostat housings. Those will fail in the event that the car overheated for any reason, like a broken radiator, or fan stopped working in extreme temperatures, the customer drove it or whatnot. Those I have seen. I've also seen where Honda has installed the thermostat on the seal or the O-ring incorrectly, causing some inefficiency coolant codes, but as far as staying stuck open, stuck closed, causing poor heat or overheating condition, I have seen 0 failures. Now, with aftermarket ones, a lot of times they try to open earlier or a little bit later. And in that situation, it does throw a coolant code. But as far as OEM Honda, I have seen exactly 0. So if you're looking to change one, I would still say every 5 years or 75 to 100K is about right. But I've seen them well into the 200,000 miles without failing once again. So hopefully that answers the question for you. So this next question is, what are some used car buying tips if this person was in a market for a used car? First things first, I'm gonna go ahead and say if it's a decent investment, so anything above 10 grand or so, you're gonna want to hire a mechanic of some sort that knows the product, not just some sort of street mechanic that doesn't know, Honda, Nissan, Toyota. Try to get somebody that specializes in that brand, because they're gonna know exactly what to look for. So a lot of these places try to be slick. The cars will have issues, they'll try to mask them, they'll clear check engine lights and stuff like that. So one things I would look for is make sure the OBD2 monitors are set. If they're not set, that means that the codes were cleared and recently, or it had a failed or battery died, or the battery disconnected for maybe something else, but it's still something that you could bring up at that point. You're going to want to also look for any modifications that were done to the vehicle. In particular, if it's a newer car and it's something turbocharged, it can easily flash. Exhaust modifications, downpipes, stuff like that. Are a pretty good indicator that the car has been modified. Intake tubes, and just if something looks out of place or something missing, then something has been modified. Also, people swear by Carfax, but Carfax only has what was reported. For instance, if your vehicle was in an accident and you didn't report it to any sort of agency or the police department or anything like that, it's not going to be in a Carfax. So if you were in a small fender bender and you just took some money to get your bumper repaired, that won't show up. Obviously, not a huge deal, but something to keep an eye out for. In that situation, you look for bolts that were moved, and you could tell when a bolt is out of place slightly, or there's been a socket on it. A trained eye will be able to tell. Not that you personally can, but again, a good mechanic will be able to tell. And even if he charges you $100-200, it's better to lose those 200 hours than to buy a car 10, 15, 20 grand and get caught up with somebody else's headache. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so the next question is, what are the timing change service intervals? So if a car is maintained properly, in particular the oil change, it should never need a timing chain replacement. Not a timing chain tensioner, a timing chain. Tensioners can fail regardless of oil change practices, but they seem to fail more so when oil changes are done more infrequently and followed by Honda's algorithm. So I have a video on an aggressive side of maintenance. If you're interested in that, I'll make sure it's in the comment section down below and you could check that out. I don't agree with Honda's algorithm system. I think it's way too soft and not aggressive enough. So, but once again, if the oil changes are changed on time from 3,000 to 5,000 miles, you will never need a timing change to be replaced. Now, if you do 10,000 miles or so oil changes, it's very probable that the timing chain will stretch over time and give you some sort of incorrect facing code, or even lead to timing chain jumping and causing potentially some catastrophic failure. So if you're buying a car that's used, take off the valve, the oil cap, and just take a look inside the valve cover, see the coloring of the camshafts and the rock arms. If they are nice and silver, then that car was properly maintained. If they have like a brownish, a yellowish tint to it, or even sometimes very dark brown tint to it, then obviously the oil changes weren't done on time. A lot of times you could also tell by pulling out the dipstick. Again, if the dipstick is nice and silver, then the oil changes were done properly. If it is on a brownish side, then there was some infrequent oil changes at that time, and it would be something that would be on the back of my mind at least. So I've seen cars go 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles on a timing chain. So, but I've also seen them fail at 40,000, 50,000 miles from a lack of oil changes. So it just really depends on the situation. But once again, if a car was maintained properly, then it should never need a timing chain replacement. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Alrighty, so last but not least question of the video. And once again, if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment in the section down below, and I'll try to get to everyone's questions. So what is some tips and proper maintenance on your tires lasting as long as possible? So now I see a huge trend of cupping tires in the back of vehicles. So cupping is where they're wearing very uneven and they end up causing some extra noise that won't be there with the tire that's obviously wearing properly. So a lot of times I see this from not rotating the tires frequently enough, and people try to rotate in different ways, and that's fine. Some people rotate just front to back, some people rotate the front to the back and crisscross the front. Whatever way you want to approach it, I'm okay with, but you do not want to be letting your rotations go more than like 7,500 miles or 10,000 miles at most, or once a year, whatever comes first. And once again, if you leave them in the back for too long, they're just gonna cup. It's a huge trend that I'm seeing across all Hondas and Acuras, as well as other manufacturers. So personally, I rotate mine every other oil change, which is about 6,000 miles or so. And my tires never wear on any of my cars. Now I see people coming in 15,000 miles later, and guess what? The tires are cupped, Honda's not going to cover it, or Acura or any other manufacturer, because you know, obviously you didn't follow the proper maintenance for the rotation, and that's going to be on you. Now I know this is kind of you know, not fair because it is their product, and the tires shouldn't be cupping, but it's just something that we're seeing, and something that, you know, we just don't really have any control of, other than having the proper rotations. Obviously making sure your tires are properly inflated at all times. Check them at least once a month. Even a couple PSI could make a big difference, causing some outer wear or inner wear, whatever, you know, if you overinflate them or underinflate them. And you want to make sure you get your alignments 12 to 15,000 miles or once a year. Or if you know you've whacked the pothole pretty heavily, that's going to throw out your alignment. So here in Jersey, we have a ton of alignments, you know, especially here in the tri-state area. So New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. So we have a ton of potholes. It's pretty impossible to avoid them. So I'm aligning my car every 6 months or so. Obviously, I don't pay for it, and I don't expect the average person to be aligning the car every 6 months. But once a year, 12 to 15,000 miles, rotate your tires every other oil change, check your tire pressure at least once a month, and I think that will help out tremendously. So hopefully that answers the question for you, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.